Have you ever felt like your mind is cluttered, pulled in every direction, yet strangely empty where it matters most? In an age where information pours in faster than we can process it, many assume that more input means more wisdom. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that true intelligence isn't found in how much you consume, but in how deeply you think. Most people never learn to train their mind. They drift from mood to mood, opinion to opinion, reacting instead of reflecting. But there's another way. A quieter path, one that leads inward before it reaches outward. In the next 39 minutes, you won't be overwhelmed with theories. Instead, you'll be guided through a series of mindset shifts drawn from timeless Stoic insight. Each one is designed to sharpen your awareness and restore your authority over the one thing you truly own, your mind. So take a breath. Let the noise fall away for a while. And if something within you knows there's a stronger, calmer version of yourself waiting to be uncovered, stay with this. Watch closely. Think slowly. Your mind is about to change. 1. Argue to understand, not to win. Most people enter a conversation with armor on. Their words are weapons, and their mission is victory. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. If you go into every debate to win, you're already losing something more important: your peace, your growth, and your connection to truth. Think about the last time someone said something you disagreed with. Your muscles probably tensed. You were already crafting a rebuttal before they finished. That instinct to prove you're right is powerful. But what if you paused instead? What if you let go of the need to dominate and simply asked yourself, am I here to understand, or am I just here to win? That question alone disarms the ego. Because ego doesn't want clarity, it wants control. But when we argue to understand, we step into a higher space, one where we learn, evolve, and grow stronger. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled the Roman Empire and still made time to question himself, said it best: "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after." That's not weakness, that's strength, Stoic strength. Because here's the truth: when you argue to win, you stop listening. You're not searching for understanding, you're searching for flaws. You turn a conversation into a battlefield. And even when you win, both people walk away having lost the opportunity to connect. But when you argue to understand, the energy changes. You shift from being reactive to being reflective, from being combative to being curious. That's when people start to respect not just your words, but your presence. Consider how the FBI negotiates with hostage takers. Chris Voss, a former lead FBI negotiator, didn't scream, didn't threaten, didn't dominate. He asked questions. He used silence. He listened. And in doing so, he led without force. That's Stoicism in action. He didn't win by overpowering, he won by understanding. He made people feel seen, and in return, they let their guard down. You don't need a hostage situation to apply this. You just need a moment. The next time someone challenges your beliefs, try asking, what are you hoping will happen if that idea works? Or, if I were in your shoes, would I see it the same way? These questions invite dialogue. They lower the walls. They don't make people feel small. They make people think. And thinking is where true respect begins. Because the wise don't ask questions to trap. They ask to open doors. I once witnessed this in a boardroom where a junior director pitched an unconventional strategy. The room bristled. But instead of shutting him down, a senior executive asked, "If we raised the budget by 15%, how would your strategy change?" That question shifted the energy. It wasn't combative. It was constructive. And it led to a solution no one saw coming, not because someone won, but because everyone learned. The Stoics understood something modern minds often forget. A calm mind sees clearer. When you enter a conversation to observe, not to dominate, you become dangerous, not in a threatening way, but in a deeply grounded one. You stop reacting, you start thinking, you stop building walls, you start building clarity, because the person who needs to be right is still controlled by insecurity. But the person who's open to truth, no matter where it comes from, is free, and freedom is the essence of Stoic strength. So here's the challenge. In your next disagreement, don't fight to win, fight to understand. Don't rush to speak. Pause, breathe, ask questions that make both of you think. Because in that moment, you're not just choosing peace over ego, you're becoming a living example of wisdom in action. And that's how you lead, that's how you influence, that's how you grow. Let's take this one step deeper. Most people live argument to argument, thinking the louder they are, the stronger they seem. But the wisest people, they've learned to zoom out, to see the bigger system, because true power isn't in dominating a moment, it's in understanding the entire game. And in the next part, that's exactly where we're going. Are you ready to stop reacting to fragments and start thinking in full pictures? Then stay with me. Part 2 will show you how. 2. Think systematically, not situationally. Most people go through life reacting to events like they're random lightning strikes. One setback and they spiral, one win and they're euphoric. They live moment to moment, tossed around by emotions, treating every challenge like a verdict on who they are. But that's not thinking. That's surviving. And Stoicism doesn't teach you to survive. It teaches you to rise above chaos, to respond with reason, not reaction. Systematic thinking is the mindset of those who refuse to be ruled by isolated moments. Instead of judging each event in a vacuum, they zoom out, they step back, they connect the dots. When something goes wrong, they don't crumble, they analyze, they ask deeper questions. Not, why did I fail? But where in the system did something break down? That shift in perspective is everything. Because when you see your life as a system, a living, evolving mechanism, you stop taking things so personally. You start improving instead of imploding. Epictetus put it best. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And your reaction, when guided by reason and clarity, becomes the compass that recalibrates the system. Let's say you lose a job opportunity. Most people will immediately think, I'm not good enough. But the Stoic mind asks, what was within my control that I didn't execute well? Was I underprepared? Did I misread the company's needs? That's not self-blame. That's self-diagnosis. And that's how you grow. Consider Eliud Kipchoge, the first human being to run a marathon in under 2 hours. That wasn't a product of adrenaline or luck. It was the result of years of methodical training, refinement, and relentless self-correction. Kipchoge didn't just run harder, he ran smarter. Every mile, every meal, every movement was measured and optimized. When he fell short, he didn't despair. He asked questions. Was it his pacing, his electrolyte balance, shoe cushioning? He broke it down, refined the system, and came back stronger. That's not talent. That's strategy. That's what Stoicism looks like in motion. You don't have to be an athlete to think this way. Imagine you're in a heated argument with someone you love. The old response, raised voices, defensiveness, maybe even walking out. But the systematic thinker steps back, not physically but mentally, and asks, where in this dynamic do we always go wrong? Is it my tone? Do I interrupt too quickly? Do I listen or just wait to speak? That moment of introspection shifts the outcome entirely, because now you're not reacting to the person, you're responding to the pattern. And when you address the pattern, you transform the relationship over time, not just the moment. But let's be honest, it's not easy. Reacting is natural. Blaming is easy. It's satisfying to draw quick conclusions. But it's not useful. What takes strength is stepping back, breathing, observing, treating life not as a string of disconnected outcomes, but as a process with feedback loops. You're not good or bad based on one success or failure. You're simply evolving. The Stoics knew this long before we had data charts or behavioral psychology. Their charts were their thoughts. Their algorithms were questions. Am I acting according to nature? Am I living in alignment with reason? Every setback was a test, not of status, but of stability. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." But polishing requires not just endurance, it requires intelligence. If you're not thinking systematically, the same trial will just grind you down instead of refining you. So how do you train this mindset? Start small. When something doesn't go your way, ask yourself, what does this moment reveal about my system? Was your plan too vague? Did your preparation fall short? Did emotion hijack your focus? Then tweak, adjust, re-enter. You're not just managing outcomes, you're building resilience through insight. And the best part? You don't need to be brilliant. You just need to be observant. Most people ask, was that good or bad? But you ask, what is this teaching me? That one question separates people who repeat mistakes from those who refine themselves into something unshakable. Because when you think in systems, failure stops being a dead end. It becomes a checkpoint, a prompt, a teacher, and life, with all its chaos, becomes something you're not just reacting to, but shaping. So the next time life pushes you to the ground, don't ask if you're worthy. Ask how you can rework your system, because your worth isn't found in outcomes, it's revealed in how you adapt. And when you master that, no failure can shake you for long. In the next part, we'll explore how your identity isn't defined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to carry forward. Let's keep going. This is just the beginning. 3. Focus only on what is within your control. There's a simple truth that most people never fully grasp. Your peace doesn't depend on the world treating you kindly. It depends on where you place your attention. Yet, in the face of uncertainty, it's easy to forget. One moment, things don't go your way, and suddenly your mind is hijacked by thoughts you can't stop, questions you can't answer, and outcomes you can't control. You start drifting into other people's thoughts, into an imagined future, into a past you wish you could change. And the more you drift, the more lost you feel. A vague comment from your boss becomes a prophecy. Maybe I'm getting fired. A delayed reply from someone you care about turns into a storm of insecurity. They don't care anymore. It's never just the moment that causes the pain. It's the story your mind starts telling. A story based not on facts, but on fear. And once you start living in that story, everything feels like a threat. But the Stoics taught us a different way to live, a way rooted in clarity, in presence, in the discipline of mind. When the world begins to spiral, they offer one simple question that cuts through the noise. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because spending energy on what you can't influence is a waste of the only life you get. And if the answer is yes, act, not later, now, with full presence, with full intention. Epictetus said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." That sentence alone is a masterclass in mental strength. It doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean indifference. It means wisdom. It means knowing where your real power begins and where your responsibility ends. Take a man like Stephen Hawking, diagnosed with ALS at 21, paralyzed in body, told he had just a few years to live. He couldn't walk. He couldn't speak. And yet, he became one of the most brilliant minds in history. Why? Because he focused relentlessly on what remained within his control, his thoughts, his discoveries, his contributions to science. He once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." That mindset didn't just make him productive, it made him free. That's the paradox most people never understand. The less you try to control the uncontrollable, the more powerful you become. Because your energy stops leaking into the impossible and starts concentrating into the essential. Think about your own life, the news you scroll through endlessly, the opinions of strangers online, the conversations that replay in your head days after they've ended. All of it beyond your control, but still you give it your peace. Still you give it your attention, and every time you do, you hand over a little more of your stability to forces that don't care if you succeed or suffer. The truth is, most people are exhausted not because of what's happening to them, but because of how they're thinking about what's happening. When you worry about what others think, you're living their life. When you fear what might happen, you abandon the life you're actually living. And when you chase control over everything, you end up controlling nothing. Even in faith, the principle remains. If you believe in a higher order, in a deeper plan, remember, God never asked you to do everything. He only asks you to do your part, and your part is today. Your thoughts, your words, your actions. That's where the work is. That's where the power lives. So no, this isn't surrender. Stoics don't run from hardship. They meet it with eyes wide open, hearts grounded in reason, and hands ready to act where it matters. They practice a kind of mental discipline that filters everything through one gate. Is this mine to carry? If the answer is no, they drop it. If the answer is yes, they move forward, calm, focused, and undistracted. Picture a sailor in a storm. He can't control the wind, he can't calm the waves, but he can steer, he can trim the sails, he can stay the course. Life is no different. You don't have to command the storm, you only have to hold the wheel. That's what mental strength really is. It's not shouting louder, it's not pretending nothing hurts. It's standing firm when everything around you shakes. It's knowing that no matter what happens, you still get to choose how you show up. So the next time your mind starts to spiral, when anxiety creeps in, when fear whispers worst-case scenarios, pause, breathe, come back to the question, is this within my control? If it's not, let it float past like a cloud in the sky. If it is, get to work. Because you don't need to know how everything will play out. You don't need to fix everything all at once. You just need to own your part, one moment at a time. And if you do that, day after day, moment by moment, you'll become something most people never become. Calm in crisis, strong in silence, unshaken by storms. This is the essence of Stoic resilience. And in the next part, we'll take it even further by exploring how mastering your attention is the key to mastering your reality. Let's move forward. 4. Know how to be silent. Silence is a superpower. In today's world, silence is misunderstood. It's often seen as weakness, as hesitation, as a void to be filled. But in reality, silence, true, intentional silence, is one of the most powerful tools you can master. In a society obsessed with constant noise, instant reactions, and endless opinions, the ability to remain silent gives you a kind of control most people never experience. Because while others are speaking to prove something, you're listening to understand. While others react out of impulse, you're responding with precision. And that's what separates the wise from the restless. We've been conditioned to fear silence. In conversations, a pause feels awkward. In meetings, a gap feels like failure. So people rush in, filling the air with half-thought ideas, nervous laughter, or defensive explanations. But the Stoics teach us the opposite. Don't fear silence. Embrace it. Because in those moments when nothing is said, everything is being revealed. Silence is not emptiness, it's observation. It's the space between reaction and response. In that space, you see the truth, in others and in yourself. When someone finishes speaking and you pause before answering, you're not hesitating, you're thinking, you're watching their body language, noticing the tone beneath their words, understanding what wasn't said. And when you do speak, your words land with weight, because they weren't blurted, they were chosen. Take negotiation, for example. A client demands a discount that feels unreasonable. Most people would defend their position instantly, but the wise, they stay quiet. They let the discomfort do the talking, and within seconds, the other party fills the silence. Well, if you can't adjust the price, maybe there's another way. Better shipping, flexible terms. Just like that, the silence has done the heavy lifting. No argument. No pushback. Just clarity and movement, all because you had the patience to wait. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence." And he wasn't suggesting passivity, he was teaching control. Because the moment you feel attacked, insulted or cornered, your instinct is to speak, to strike back, to defend, to prove. But that's when your judgment is most clouded. That's when your words are most likely to wound others or come back to wound you. Silence in that moment isn't suppression. It's a reset. A chance to breathe, to step back, to let your emotions pass so your reason can step forward. Even in relationships, especially with children, silence holds power. When a child is upset, they may not have the words to explain. And asking again and again, "What's wrong?" only adds pressure. But sit beside them. Say nothing. Just be there, steady, present. That silence becomes a sanctuary. And eventually, when they're ready, they speak, not because you forced them, but because you gave them space. That's the kind of silence that heals. In professional environments, silence is often mistaken for uncertainty, but the smartest people in the room are often the quietest. Not because they have nothing to say, but because they're choosing when to say it. They watch as others argue, interrupt, contradict themselves. Then, when they speak, it's calm, clear, and on point. And suddenly the room listens. Not because they raised their voice, but because their silence had already earned respect. Silence is a sign of self-assurance. It says, "I don't need to perform. I don't need to be louder to be heard. I'm not afraid of the quiet because I'm not afraid of myself." And that's rare. Because most people can't sit in silence without becoming anxious. They need noise, external or internal, to feel safe. But when you can endure silence, when you can rest in it like still water, you become unshakable. People can't bait you into emotional arguments. They can't predict you by your knee-jerk reactions. You become a mystery, a force, a presence. Even online, this principle holds. In the digital world, where everyone's shouting, debating, reacting to the latest drama, silence becomes strategy. Don't respond to every insult. Don't comment on every trend. Don't give your energy to every little thing that demands your attention. Pause. Watch. Choose when to speak. And when you do, let it be with purpose. Because silence is also where intelligence grows. When you're not rushing to speak, you begin to notice things. A subtle shift in someone's tone, a micro-expression, a contradiction, things others miss because they're too busy thinking about what they'll say next. But you're gathering data, and that data makes your next move sharper, smarter, more effective. The Stoics didn't preach total silence. They taught measured speech, speech guided by reason, not emotion, and that means knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. Because silence isn't retreat, it's recharge, it's reflection, it's recon. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to interrupt, to react, stop, breathe, ask yourself, am I speaking to add value or to fill space? If the answer is the latter, choose silence, because that space you leave behind will speak louder than any rushed reply ever could. In silence, you gain clarity. In silence, you claim your power. And when you've mastered that, you'll begin to notice something profound. People listen more when you speak less, because your silence teaches them that your words are never wasted. They're earned. And now that you've understood the power of restraint, get ready for the next mindset shift. Because the next step is not just about holding silence, it's about mastering presence, so that even in your quietest moments, your influence speaks volumes. Let's continue. 5. Observe and be still instead of reacting hastily. You've been there before. Someone says something offensive, absurd, or just plain disrespectful, and in a flash, your body tightens. Your mind locks onto the perfect comeback, and your mouth is ready to fire. It feels good for a moment. That surge of righteousness, that illusion of power. But what follows? Regret, broken connections, the sinking feeling that you let someone else's behavior control you. In the heat of the moment, it might feel like you won, but it's your own lack of control that ends up defeating you. That's because reaction is instinct, stillness is strength, and the gap between those two is where wisdom lives. A wise person doesn't lack emotion, they just refuse to be ruled by it. They don't rush to prove a point. They observe, they breathe, they wait, because they understand something most people don't. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He wasn't saying you won't feel the sting of an insult or the discomfort of conflict. He was saying that how you interpret the moment is what shapes your suffering. But to change that interpretation, you need space, and space is only created when you pause. Emotions rise like waves. If you let them take you, they'll drag you into deep, chaotic waters. But if you stand still and let the wave pass, you remain where you are, anchored, unharmed, composed. That's why stillness isn't passive, it's powerful. It gives you a vantage point to see the situation clearly and, more importantly, to choose your response consciously rather than letting instinct hijack your values. There's a story from a communication seminar that still echoes deeply. Someone shared a moment about Michelle Obama, the former First Lady of the United States. She had been harshly criticized by a politician on national television. When asked later why she didn't respond, why she didn't hit back, she said simply, "When they go low, we go high." That wasn't silence out of fear. It was silence rooted in self-respect. She chose to stay aligned with her values rather than let someone else's noise pull her out of character. And that's the power of stillness. It's not about losing your voice. It's about choosing your ground. When you pause instead of reacting, you gain the one thing most people never access: perspective. That pause, whether it's a deep breath, a few counted seconds, or a glance to the side, creates a space between what happens and what you decide to do about it. And in that space, you ask the questions that matter. Is this worth my energy? What would I gain by reacting? What would I lose by remaining calm? Most of the time, the answer is clear. You lose nothing by staying silent, but you preserve everything: your dignity, your peace, your power. And sometimes you even offer the other person a mirror. When they expect a reaction and get calm observation instead, they're forced to see their own behavior more clearly. You shift the dynamic. You take the upper hand without ever raising your voice. Think back to the last time you snapped. Maybe it was online, maybe in traffic, maybe with someone you love. Now imagine if, in that moment, you had paused. Maybe said nothing, maybe spoken slowly and with intention. The whole story would have changed, and not just for them, for you. This is what Stoicism offers, not just a theory, but a practice. To become someone who doesn't react according to the chaos around them, but who acts according to the principles they've chosen to live by. You're not trying to win a shouting match. You're trying to live in alignment with wisdom, courage, and inner peace. That means you don't mirror other people's energy. You don't let their storm become your own. You stay still. You watch. And when you respond, it's from a place of clarity, not chaos. Ordinary minds associate silence with surrender. But the Stoic knows silence is control. Silence is composure. Silence is power withheld until it matters. Because the one who stays silent in the storm is the one who remains in command. And the one who remains in command is the one who cannot be manipulated. So from this point forward, treat stillness as a skill, a mental shield. When emotions surge, don't try to suppress them, just don't obey them. Observe. Let the anger rise. Let the insecurity buzz. Let the judgment appear. But don't move. Don't speak. Don't respond until your reason is back in the room. You'll find that the longer you wait, the clearer you become. The calmer you stay, the more control you reclaim. And the more you train this stillness, the more you'll notice you begin to separate yourself from 90% of people. They react. You respond. They escalate. You remain. They speak impulsively. You speak only when it's necessary. You win not by overpowering, but by staying unshaken. That's what it means to lead yourself. That's what it means to live wisely. And if you've made it this far, you've already mastered one of the hardest parts, the pause. But now there's one final piece. Because stillness is the foundation, but what comes next is structure, how to turn all of these ideas into a clear, repeatable system that guides your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. In the final part, we'll bring it all together, something only a few will apply, but those who do will never see the world the same again. Let's move on. 6. Summarize thinking habits to stand out. Failure rarely comes from a lack of intelligence. Most of the time, it comes from thinking the wrong way at the wrong moment. In today's noisy, reactive world, the people who rise above aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who know how to think clearly, calmly, and strategically. They're not faster. They're more focused. They don't work harder, they work from a better mental system. And that system is built on 5 habits that separate the 10% who move forward from the 90% who stay stuck. The first is the pause, that tiny moment between stimulus and response. You feel it, the surge of offense, the sharp jab of misunderstanding, the sting of disrespect, and your instincts scream to react. But reaction is primitive. It's the survival brain hijacking your clarity. Smart people pause, just a breath, a moment of space. And in that space, power returns. The power to decide, not just respond. Because not every comment deserves your energy. Not every provocation deserves your attention. In the pause, you protect your peace and create room for the next move. That next move is to ask, not to attack, not to defend, but to understand. When someone disagrees with you, most people rush to argue, but those who've trained their minds ask deeper questions. Why do you see it that way? What's behind this reaction? What are you really hoping for? Asking shifts the energy. It turns conflict into clarity. It invites honesty. And when you ask from a place of calm curiosity, people drop their defenses. They speak truthfully. You get information, not just emotion, because questions open doors that arguments slam shut. And then act. But not randomly. Act on what you can control. Too many people exhaust themselves complaining about politics, about the past, about people who will never change. But sharp thinkers ask, given all this, what is my move? They don't waste time resisting reality. They meet it with intention. They turn helplessness into action. It might be a single call, a message, a decision, a new plan, but it's forward motion. One deliberate action rooted in clarity is worth more than 1,000 emotional reactions thrown into the void. But none of this matters if you haven't trained the fourth habit, silence. Silence is not defeat, it's control. In conversation, when tensions rise, most people speak to defend themselves. But those who understand silence use it like a scalpel. They hold it. They let the other person fill it. And in that discomfort, truth emerges. Explanations are refined. Weak reasoning reveals itself. The Stoics didn't talk to dominate. They spoke only when their words served a purpose. Silence is how you gather information. It's how you read the room. It's how you say without saying, I don't need to perform to be powerful. And finally, zoom out. Think in systems. The person who sees only this moment, this problem, this failure, will always be controlled by emotion. But the one who zooms out, who sees this moment as a data point in a much longer sequence, gains perspective. A single setback doesn't define them. A single win doesn't make them arrogant. They understand that growth is not a straight line. It's iterative. It's strategic. And it's built on the ability to learn from everything without getting swallowed by anything. Like Epictetus said, we suffer not from events, but from our judgment about them. So change the judgment. See events not as personal attacks, but as pieces of a pattern. Then adjust the pattern. Pause, ask, act, embrace silence, zoom out. These aren't just techniques, they're habits of the mind, tools of the Stoic. And when you begin using them, you shift from reacting to directing, from chaos to clarity. You become the one who doesn't just survive the storm, but navigates through it. In the final message, we'll turn all of this into a mindset you can carry daily, simple, powerful, and nearly invisible to most. But once mastered, it becomes your quiet edge in a world that's always rushing, always shouting, always lost in reaction. Let's close strong. True intelligence lives in how you respond when it counts. Stay calm, ask better questions, act with intention. These 5 habits are not tricks. They are tools to help you think clearly and live deeply. Comment, think clearly, subscribe if this resonated, and be ready. The next step on your path is coming.